So if you saw my leaks review, you know what I think of this chapter and what happens in it. But now that the English version translation is out, does the dialogue help to enhance the story, or does it help to hinder it or worsen it? Well, it's actually pretty run-of-the-mill for the most part. There are some things that the characters say, however, that raise some questions and a major revelation or possibly confirmation according to what your theories were for Androids 17 and 18, so look forward to that. But of course, let's talk about how incredibly badass this chapter is. Like, you have everybody just, like, I've heard people compare this to the Avengers, and that is definitely accurate in terms of how incredibly cool this is with everybody. These guys, you get the feeling that they are prepared, and this chapter definitely shows it, and you don't need the dialogue at all to show it. And this is a very, very great example of visual storytelling here. And this shot right here might be my favorite of the entirety of Dragon Ball Super. It reminds me of the Tournament of Power shot of the Universe 7 fighters, and everybody just preparing, except you know, we got different people here including Yamcha, who definitely gets his time to shine in here. And he actually says it here. What I thought was interesting was that Chaozu says, "It's been so long, I hope I can still fight." And I'm like, okay, well, you know, we know that Tien is always training and always trying to improve himself, but apparently Chaozu doesn't, since he's not sure if he can even fight anymore. Yet he is still there. Like, this little guy, you gotta give it to him, because he doesn't even know if he can still fight, and yet he's still going out on the battlefield. Maybe he can help, like, freeze some people in their steps. And Jocko calls them new recruits, and this is really funny. Yamcha says, "What, new recruits? We're pretty much the veterans of protecting the Earth." And I'm like, yeah, Yamcha, you know, I hate to break it to you, but, you know, you were first killed by Cyberman and then stabbed through the chest by Android 19. And in the anime of Dragon Ball, you got your butt kicked by Tambourine. So, I guess not for lack of trying. And so, yeah, Yamcha in this chapter definitely redeems his meme status, and we'll get into that in a second. But apparently, Moro's men just kind of wants to steal stuff. They just want to pillage the Earth of its treasures, and they just, like I said in the leaks review, I really love the different locations that Toyotaro is using here. And I was thinking, does anybody know? Because I can't remember if any of these locations are actually from the original Dragon Ball, or if they're a reference to anything. Because I feel like they are. Like, this castle in the snow here, this looks really familiar. Like, it's from Dragon Ball in the Red Ribbon Army arc sometime in that period. But I really like how this Not Magetta dude is attacking, and then he gets into it with Tien and Chaozu, and I really, really hope that we see that fight, man, because we don't see it in this chapter. So Krillin and Roshi go off, and I guess they just kind of happen to run into the panda dude. I don't think they were specifically hunting him down, but it gives a good opportunity for Krillin to have a rematch. So definitely looking forward to where that goes. But Roshi is a little bit rude to Krillin here. Like, you guys are a team. He says, hey, you can't go relying on your old master forever. Like, I'm betting you can handle this chump alone. Now it's like, okay, you know, that's great that you're having confidence in Krillin, but at the same time, you're pretty rude about it. Like, you guys are a team. You should practice teamwork, but this is all in service to Master Roshi's motivations of going after the nasty babes, as he calls them. Really funny stuff. But yeah, oh man, I can't wait to see that full fight between Krillin and the panda dude. I really hope we get some, like, really good tension-filled action with Krillin. Because we all know we were deprived of that in the Tournament of Power, so this is a way for that kind of to be redeemed. And it's not necessarily, I mean, you could consider it like a fan service kind of thing in a way, but at the same time, I mean, it's in service to the story. Like, the Earth is being invaded by all these, like, super powerful convicts. So it makes sense for all these characters to be involved and to be protecting the Earth, you know? It's not just fan service for the sake of fan service, you know? So a large portion of the chapter is focused on Gohan and Piccolo's fight with Android 7-3, the rematch of the century. So the Predator dude comes in and they're like, "Oh, you're alone," and then 7-3. Like an actual Predator comes in, he's invisible, and apparently he had copied the abilities of an invisible race. So after they left, they went to a planet with invisible people, and he took their powers apparently. But Gohan and Piccolo were prepared for this. Granted, it is still slightly annoying that they let their guard down again and let him copy their abilities. Although this is the first time Gohan did it, like Piccolo should know better. And as I said in my Leaks review, like wouldn't Piccolo have heard him, like his footsteps approaching from behind them? So it's all in service to like having a really cool fight using Piccolo's and Gohan's abilities against them, and then Piccolo and Gohan's amazing teamwork. Guys, the teamwork in this is like top notch. Now, Gohan uses this very interesting technique, this shield basically, and as I like to call it, an energy eye contact lens. And I didn't notice this at first, but somebody on Twitter mentioned it, that Gohan actually spins it like against the rotation of the Android 7-3 special beam cannon, so maybe that will help to kind of disperse or negate some of like the drilling power, I guess. Very interesting. While Piccolo is shooting it from the other side, he's like starting to overwhelm 7-3. But if you look here, Piccolo's blast is a little bit bigger than 7-3's, so therefore he wins. And it's really amazing because he actually blows a chunk off of 7-3's body. And I really actually liked the little touch of everybody kind of seeing the special beam cannon in the sky, and they're like, oh, everybody's fighting. And that's kind of what a lot of the dialogue is, oh, I sense that the battle's raging on over on this part of the earth, and then this person is over here. So I'm wondering if that's how they contacted Tien, since he doesn't have a cell phone, you know? And then they finally got over their prejudice of Yamcha for him to help, because they can sense energy very easily. And speaking of, why didn't they sense when Broly was on Earth, you know? So Gohan explains that they were ready for their arrival, and of course they've been training, so they're a lot stronger, but since 73 copied their abilities, it shouldn't really matter. But then we got some amazing teamwork. 73 switches to Gohan, because obviously he's stronger, and Piccolo uses his... This might be my favorite part of the chapter now. Well, okay, second or third favorite. So he's blasting these blasts, and they're basically... You know, if you're familiar with like old Nintendo games or something like that, and platformers, there's like moving platforms and you're jumping from one platform to another, avoiding like obstacles. Like Mario, you're avoiding the bullet bills. This really reminded me of that. Gohan is avoiding 7-3's bullet bills. And Gohan gets an amazing punch out on 7-3. And actually, you know, come to think of it, one criticism, I really like this full page layout of just Gohan jumping and avoiding the shots, but the vast majority of this chapter is very condensed in terms of its paneling, and there's a lot of very small panels. And I feel like this might be common, but I definitely noticed it in this one more than anything. And I almost feel like this chapter should have been 2 chapters. So we could have, you know, focused a little bit more on the others. But then at the same time, this makes it so that you can focus more on them in future chapters. Like, it's a lot of setup for some other cool fights. Oh, and I forgot to mention 7-3 absorbs because he's got the power of Piccolo. Lucky he had the power of Piccolo in that moment. And it's funny because after this, he doesn't get his body blown apart because that would be inconvenient. I think, oh man, okay, we'll get to that in a second. But Gohan punches him in a really badass scene. But then we cut to Yamcha, and, you know, like I said before, Yamcha is definitely redeeming his meme status here, because, and it's interesting because the Galactic Patrol went out to back these guys up, but then it turns out that they don't need any backup, especially with Yamcha. And it's funny, this fish dude actually says, "You look so freaking weak." And Yamcha's like, "I'm actually one of the 3 strongest Earthlings around." And that raised a question in my mind. Okay, so there's Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha. So technically, he's one of the 3 strongest, but also one of the only strongest Earthlings. You know, unless you count Roshi. I mean, can Yamcha hold his own against Jiren? I doubt it. But so on the next page, he's fighting like a badass against these 3 guys. And this picture right here is actually a reference to when Yamcha fight a Cyberman in the Saiyan Saga. I actually shared that side-by-side comparison on my Twitter when the leaks came out. And I don't know if anybody else caught that, but I did. So I'm so proud of myself for that. So Yamcha just wipes the floor with them, and he's like, all right, on to the next group. So then we go back to Piccolo and Gohan, and oh my god, this is such an awesome scene. Like, this teamwork blast, Demon Flash of Death. Speaking of, when Piccolo does the Makako Sopo, he says Demon Light of Death, but now it's the demon with Gohan, the Demon Flash of Death. And oh my god, such cool teamwork. And the blast goes in and just explodes the crap out of 7-3. And this is the time when I thought, okay, well, it's rather convenient that 7-3 doesn't get his body blown to bits here, but he did before. So I think it would have been interesting if he had to switch back over to Piccolo to regenerate again and then switch to Moro, because Gohan and Piccolo are a little bit nervous that he's going to switch to Moro's power, and that they should finish him off right away, but they don't get it. 7-3 doesn't give him the second to do that, but luckily androids 17 and 18 arrived like badasses and just kick him right in the face. This chapter is full of really awesome entrances, and I'm looking forward to more too. Speaking of, Boo is asleep in this chapter, which is rather annoying, but it adds another person that could step in and just have a really awesome moment to come in and kind of save the day. So now we have Goku, who can come in a badass moment to save the day, Vegeta, and now Boo that can have a really cool moment to jump in and save the day. So very interesting dialogue here, and they actually explain, like, this is one thing that people have theorized for the longest time, like Moro's abilities. Like, one of the theories is that Moro's abilities can't work on the androids because they have like different energy, and this is confirmed here. So it is confirmed that the androids don't have ki. So I'm not as familiar with like the different types of ki. There, like, of course, there's Genki. So if the androids have unlimited stamina, you would think that they could just give away unlimited ki to the Genki Dama, because if you remember, 17 and 18 in the Tournament of Power gave Goku energy to the Genki Dama. So you're like, okay, what? They don't have energy? That doesn't make sense. Well, what they do have is they do have Genki. Because they are just enhanced humans, and of course humans have Genki. They just don't have traditional ki, I suppose, and which actually makes sense because that means that they can't transfer their energy to another person. Sorry, I'm holding my daughter here. It's almost nap time. So I suppose that makes sense, and like their energy is like of a mechanical nature because it's like some sort of generator inside them. So I guess that makes sense, you know, they can't, so, you know what, Android 17 might be the one to defeat Moro, who knows. But however badass this is, I don't know how I feel about the androids being the ones to defeat Android 73. You know, it's cool because they're all, you know, kind of artificial, but 7-3 is Piccolo and Gohan's villain, so to speak. So I'm hoping that they fight for a while, and then his Moro ability runs out of time, and then Gohan and Piccolo jump in. I actually kind of hope it's just Piccolo to fight 7-3, and they just have like a massive brawl with Piccolo coming out on top. Like, how badass would that be? So anyway, we get some more dialogue here, which I got a question. You know, obviously it's for comedic effect, and it's not necessarily like against her character. But 18 mentions that Capsule Corp is paying her to be there, and I'm like, really? You're not gonna go, you know, protect the Earth where your freaking family and daughter lives, unless you're paid? Like, come on. I get that it might be just for comedic effect, but it honestly kind of makes me like her character a little bit less. And then we have, because people have been asking where they are, Goten and Trunks are again taking care of Android 17's island, which I guess makes sense, but like, why can't they be involved? Like, does your island need 24/7 protection? Like, come on. So I'm actually really hoping that they have a little bit of adventure, which they should have done in the Tournament of Power. Like, have a B story with them fighting the crooks and like the poachers and stuff. But here they can have a really cool and fun moment where they are protecting the island from Moro's convicts. Now, how awesome would that be? Because Goten and Trunks at this time are what, like 13 or 14 years old? So they're not like little kids like they were in the Buu Saga. Like, let's show some growth for their characters, for crying out loud. So, anyway, we get to the end of the chapter where we finally touch up on Moro, and he's like, you know, these weakling convicts are such a disappointment. It doesn't matter. I'm an overconfident bad guy. I'm still waiting on Moro to get some more depth here. So then we get to Vegeta, which actually teases his technique, and we are shown that he hasn't quite gotten the grasp of whatever he's trying to do yet. And what's very interesting here is that they mentioned that he can sense what's going on Earth. Like, that is some massive sensing abilities. Like, Goku actually has to concentrate to be able to feel out ki in the universe and everything. He has to concentrate pretty hard. Vegeta, he's just like, oh, something's going on Earth. What? Almost like the Force, you know? So really cool stuff. Like, the intrigue is building and building with what Vegeta's going to do. I hope, like, I'm trying not to get my expectations too high because I don't want to be disappointed, but I really hope that it's something that pays off. Finally, to end the chapter off, we touch up on Goku, which is hilariously lost. Well, good thing he learned, he figured out how to fly the spaceship. He just doesn't know how to get there, so he has to... another Mario reference. These squid guys remind me of the freaking squid dudes from the water the Mario levels that are underwater where you're swimming and everything. So that was really funny. So man, definitely looking to see where they go with this next. There's definitely a lot of possible material to cover and have at least a bunch of more chapters. You could have like a focus chapter on each of the characters even if you wanted to. But man, what do you guys think is going to happen next? Drop your thought waves down in the comments below. As always, I hope you had fun with this review, and as always, take it easy.